lovers, and welcome. I want to start off by saying I am so blessed to be in a position to suggest tips and tools and even products that can help you lead a tantric life of liberation and expansion. And one of my absolute favorite places to purchase spiritual and sexy items is Wands. Wands.com, spelled Wands. Wands sells, you guessed it, crystal pleasure wands, along with so much more, including yoni eggs, free bleed blankets, other amazing products for yoni steaming. I've been using these products and products similar to them for the better part of a decade, and they have been incredible allies in my journey of sexual healing and expanding my orgasmic potential. And I'm so grateful to be friends with the owner, Courtney. She's amazing. She has so generously provided us all with a discount code for 15% off, and that code is Leola. Leola. You can use it on their website, www.wands.com. Again, the code is Leola, Leola, for 15% off. I'll also make sure that this is linked in the show notes. So thank you for listening, and you're welcome for the inevitable pleasure and healing that is coming your way with these products. Now, let's get into the episode. Welcome to Talk Tantra to Me. It is such an honor to be holding space for this divine knowledge to make its way into your ears and lifestyle. Today, we're going to be talking about white Tantra. What is white Tantra? So, within the world of Tantra, there are many different lineages. There are many different lenses and perspectives and ways to sort of like, what's the word? Qualify what Tantra is, right? I have a whole episode of the podcast. It's one of my earlier episodes. It's called Tantra 101, New World Intimacy Through Old World Modalities. It's episode 15. So that was recorded like 3 years ago. So a lot has changed for me, even in terms of what Tantra means to me and how I would explain it. We're really just going to be looking at it from one particular lens today. If you'd like a more broad, description of Tantra, I would point you to that episode and also say that, I've learned a lot since then as well. All of this podcast is Tantra though, so you really can't go wrong. But, to start off, I'll give a very brief, before we go down the lane of white Tantra specifically, briefly, Tantra itself is a Sanskrit word. Sanskrit is a language that comes from East Asia. It is a language in which many of the ancient tantric texts have been, composed in, as well as other religious artifacts from, ancient times are written in Sanskrit. It is Tantra. So Tantra in Sanskrit is two words. We have Tan and Tra. Tan means to liberate. Tra means to expand. So under that definition, Tantra is a lifestyle that inspires expansion and liberation, right? And what I love about that definition is that it is really broad, and for that reason can be really subjective. And what is expansive and liberating to one person will look very different to the next person. And what is expansive and liberating for you right now might be very different than what was expansive and liberating for you 10 years ago or 10 years from now. So what the point is that Tantra can mean a lot of things and can look very, very different. And I kind of love it. That being said, there are a lot of people that get really on their high horse about what Tantra is and get really upset when someone's definition of Tantra does not align with their own. And I do think that it's really important to honor and recognize the teachers who have, popularized this work. And it's also my belief that not one guru owns Tantra, not even one part of the world owns Tantra. I once did an episode of the podcast with the Akashic Records, and they said that Tantra originated from ancient Lemuria and actually not India. So, and I mean, who knows how accurate that is necessarily? I kind of feel that it's true. I feel like Tantra has existed forever, and it's been called different things in different societies. That's my belief. That's my truth. If it resonates with you, awesome. If not, also okay. But what we've seen is that many gurus or teachers have figured out what is really expansive and liberating for them. And then they have shared it with a mass of people who also really resonate. And that tends to create one lineage of Tantra or one lens in which to explore Tantra. I myself have dabbled in lots of different places with Tantra, and I have never really found one teacher, one lens that I 100% align with, and I've committed myself to become a disciple of. And it's something that I actually really want to emphasize for you, the listener, and for anyone who comes into my world. For the past, thousands of years, we've had this pattern of finding, a teacher or a guru and really putting them on the pedestal and becoming a disciple of this religious authority of some kind. And my work, the intention of my work is for you to put yourself on that pedestal, to learn to trust yourself first and to become your own spiritual authority in a way. That being said, I've done lots of research and learnings and teachings, and I find that it is really valuable to share that and in a way become a muse to you, to inspire you to find your own way of living a tantric life. But we're going to explore one lens today called white tantra. So, sorry, I feel like I have something in my throat. When we hear the word white tantra, we hear a color, right? And if there's one color, white tantra, we might deduce that there might be other colors of tantra besides white tantra, and that is correct. So, as far as I know, there is white tantra, red tantra, pink tantra, and black tantra. White tantra is generally associated with a very spiritual path of tantra. We're often utilizing meditation, breath work, and really a focus on relationship to oneself. White tantra can be seen as a more monastic path compared to the other paths that I will briefly go over in a moment. White tantra is also associated with the right hand path or the more masculine path of tantra. So right hand versus left hand path is another way that people like break down the different types of tantra. We'll get into red tantra in a minute, but we have white tantra, which is the right tantric path, and then red tantra is the left hand path. Again, left tantra is more feminine, white tantra is more masculine. When we think about masculine, what I mean by white tantra is more masculine is that there's more of a structure to it. There's more of there's very clear practices that are outlined that one should, take part in to have their spiritual awakening, their enlightenment within the white tantric path. Whereas within the red tantric path, there's a lot more fluidity. There's less of like a clear path, if you will. Within white tantra, it's like this is like these are the things that you do, and you do your meditation and you do your yoga, and it's like very like cookie cutter. Like it's very this is it. Whereas red tantra is more feminine, and the feminine is flowy and chaotic, and there's not necessarily a linear way of being within the red tantric path. Within the red tantric path, there's where white tantra is more focused on moving the energy within yourself and finding expansion and liberation within yourself. Red tantra invites in a lot more like other energies including other people, which means that there's more sexuality within the red tantric path. And there's also, I'm just going to make a note for something I want to touch on. Within the red tantric path, you could also, speaking of other energies, it could be plant medicine is more welcome within the red tantric path, whereas in the white tantric path, it tends to be a little bit more, again, like purist, focusing only on, your energy rather than inviting in other plant medicines, wine, even meet other people. The white is like white tantra. White is associated with purity. So white is a more purist path. Within that kind of context, red tantra again has the invitation for sexual union as well. And I think that red tantra is what a lot of us think about. If we haven't heard of tantra or we've heard very little, a lot of people think about when they hear the word tantra, they tend to sexualize it. They tend to think, oh, this is like tantric sex. Whereas in reality, sex is just one tool in the toolbox of tantra. And really isn't a part of white tantra at all. There's lots of teachers of the white tantric path that can even be a bit frustrated with how sexualized tantra has become. For myself personally, I don't think that it's inherently wrong or bad that tantra has become so sexualized, because sexuality is something that, so many people need work on. And I'm happy that people are getting the support in one way or another. And I find that tantra is a very holistic path for healing our sexuality. But again, it's just one part of the path. Many of us enter tantra, because we want to know the cool sex tricks and explore intimacy, when in reality, not too far into our journey with tantra, we end up doing a lot more white tantric stuff. We end up, healing our relationship to like our emotions, our family. Like it ends up being a lot bigger than what we originally came into it for. Um, Myself, what do I practice between these two? I practice something called pink tantra, which white tantra, red tantra, pink would be a blend of both. It's often seen as kind of a middle ground between the red and the white lineages. I have practices or containers that are very red tantric, including our play parties. And I have practices and more of the tantric body work as well. Actually, the tantric body work is pretty pink. It's pretty split down the middle. But the play parties are very red tantric. As far as white tantra, my most white tantric container is the Turned On by Life course. The Turned On by Life course is really a journey through the Kundalini chakra system, which I'll explain why that's more white tantric in a moment. But one thing that I find with white tantra is that for a lot of us, it can feel really esoteric. It's really classical. It's really based on these ancient texts that aren't as applicable to the modern world and our modern lives. So what I did with Turned On by Life was I took a lot of those foundational pieces of white tantra and I made them a lot more approachable to the modern individual. If you're interested in any of my containers or whatever, I recommend just checking out my website. There's lots of stuff there. You can find the Turned On by Life course under the Work With Me tab. You can find out about the play parties, which are more red tantric, under the events tab. Tons of stuff there. But yeah, I would say pink tantra is where I play. And then we have Black Tantra. And Black Tantra is something that I don't really know a lot about, to be honest. So I'm not going to speak into it too, deeply. Black Tantra is sometimes associated with black magic. That's what I've heard. And for this reason, it can be really demonized. Again, I don't have a lot of experience with Black Tantra. So, and it's not what this episode is about. So I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I will say that a lot of the things that I find are demonized in the world tend to turn out to be really empowering if we bring light to them and go about them with the right intention. So I don't know if that's true about Black Tantra or not. Again, I don't have much experience with it. I do a lot of work to protect myself against things that might be shadowy, and I also do a lot of shadow work. So yeah, it's just not a big focus of my work, but that is a thing that exists, Black Tantra. So let's get into my journey with white Tantra. So I will say that my entry into the world of Tantra began with red Tantra. So I started dating a man who had previously dated a tantrika, and we had a sexual relationship. And that's how I first started learning about Tantra. And from there, I did some of my own research about how to have tantric sex and things like that. And slowly over time, I started to learn more and more about the history of Tantra and other tantric practices besides the sexual practices. And that's where my white tantric, path began. as I went deeper into that, in the beginning, most of my white tantric studies were on my own, which is kind of beautiful because white tantra is so much focused on our relationship to ourself and our relationship to our energy. However, it can be really helpful to have a guru or a teacher of white tantra as well. White Tantra. So I did, again, I read a lot of books about the chakra system. The Kundalini chakra system is Kundalini is life force. It's often associated with erotic energy or even chi. It's this energy that brings us into the world, and it's said to rest at the base of our spine. And then we have our chakra system, and we have 7 main chakras that start at the base of our spine and go all the way up to the crown of our head. And a lot of what white tantra is getting comfortable with mastering that energy, bringing it forth and circulating it through the system to achieve, elevated states of consciousness, to have a spiritual awakening or a Kundalini awakening. So I started to have more embodied practice with white tantra when I started doing Kundalini yoga. I started doing Kundalini yoga when I moved to LA. There's tons of Kundalini yoga there. It's incredible. It's very activating. I also I actually started practicing Kundalini even before that because I practiced when I was living in South Africa. Um, Anyways, it's beside the point, but yeah, it's incredible. I had one of my first energetic orgasms in a Kundalini yoga class. It was also really empowering, beautiful for me. I started to see the power of what could happen with my own sexuality rather than, going to someone else. Kundalini yoga, I will say as well, was really popularized by a man named Yogi Bhajan. And Yogi Bhajan has since passed, but it's also important to recognize that he did have numerous allegations of sexual abuse associated with him. I don't know how those all played out, how accurate they all are. I definitely find that, as we're evolving in this space and more people are stepping into this space, it's incredibly important to have a high level of discernment and integrity, especially if you're going to be a leader in this space. I tend to really align with communities that have a sense of restorative justice and process. But yeah, so that's just important to note. But there's going to a Kundalini yoga class. You really shouldn't have any relation. Like it's ironic that he's like really Yogi Bhajan has really elevated white tantra into the Western world when in reality, like there seems to be a lot of shadow. And that's one of the reasons that I've been a little bit skeptical of white tantra in the past, because I've noticed that, with some of the practitioners, because they're not ignoring the sexual piece, but their intention is to channel the sexual energy in a way that's empowering for enlightenment. But sometimes what can happen when we abandon sexuality is that it will sneak out in very shadowy ways. And I don't think that that's the case for many white tantric lineages or teachers, but it sounds like that might have been the case with Yogi Bhajan. So it's just something to be aware of if you do decide to go with the white tantric path, to be really conscious of the shadow sexuality that can come up in that space. Why are you just focusing on white tantra and not integrating some of the sexual pieces? Is there, some guilt, shame, fear around your sexuality? Just something to consider as well. But that being said, yeah, Kundalini yoga and just studying the chakra system was kind of my introduction into white tantra. From there, I was still playing a lot with red tantra, and I actually, it's interesting because I worked with a red tantric practitioner who basically crossed my boundaries, basically sexually assaulted me. And I tell that whole story on an episode of the podcast. Hold on. It is episode 44 of the podcast. It's called My Tantra Teacher Sexually Abused Me. It's a really important episode. If you are wanting to work with a tantric practitioner of any kind and want to understand the potentially harmful effects of working with someone that's not fully in their integrity and really probably shouldn't be teaching or leading, but has put themselves, in a position of authority. And again, how the shadow can come out and play in those spaces. So, that being said, when that happened, I didn't really realize what was happening until I actually had some spaciousness from the teacher, and I started to process what was going on. And really, like divinely at the same time, a new training came into my awareness, and it was a month-long Paula Tantra yoga teacher training in Ecuador at Durga's Tiger School. I recommend Durga's Tiger School. If anyone's interested, they can look it up if you're wanting to learn more about White Tantra and even, become certified to teach White Tantra. I do recommend them. There were things that didn't really align with me about the school and the teachers, but overall, I found it to be a really incredible experience, and I still utilize a lot of the things that I learned there to this day. They do have little sprinkles of red tantra. They do have invitations to work with plant medicine if you'd like. Not required, not a part of the course program. They're kind of like extra add-ons. But yeah, Durga Tiger School. So I went and I did a month-long training there and had and I really appreciated that. I think that what my recommendation for individuals, if they're like, I don't know where to start, red tantra or white tantra, I really think that it's important for people to have a foundation of white tantra before they dive into the deep end of red tantra. That being said, I also know that a lot of people are really enticed by the sexiness of red tantra, and that's how they find tantra. It's also why for me, for most of my containers, I really go pink, because I try to, I know that you're here for the red tantra and it's sexy and it's fun, but let's also like talk about these other energetic pieces so that you're empowered. The beauty of white tantra is that, again, it's really focused on ourselves, and in that way it really empowers us. It really empowers us to have sovereignty in our experience. I find that if you have a really good understanding of white tantra, then you're going to be much more supported to succeed in red tantra. I don't know if I mentioned this already. I don't think I did. But what they say about white tantra versus red tantra is that white tantra tends to be the more like sure path to spiritual enlightenment. Again, it's like this tried and true practice path. However, it's also said that it can take longer to see growth and to see change. Whereas with red tantra, it's faster. Things can move quicker. You can have a faster transformation, but it's much easier. It's more dangerous. It's much easier to get distracted. It's much easier to fall off the path and get caught up in someone else's energy and take on someone else's energy. And the beauty of white tantra is that, again, it really empowers you to come into this holistic space within yourself so that you're not as shaky or as easily pulled off the path when you do, work with red tantra. And I think that that's really what happened to me. I didn't have a super strong foundation with white tantra. And so when red tantra tested me, it really shook me off of the path at certain points, in ways that potentially could have been, they were actually re-traumatizing. I was re-traumatized by red tantra because of my lack of full understanding of my own energy. So I'm really happy that after I had that experience with that practitioner where my boundaries were crossed, that I then went into like a deep dive into this white tantric space, and then was able to really understand, like, in retrospect, I'm actually glad that I didn't really go all in on white tantra, so that I could understand what can happen if you don't, and have that lived experience. Albeit it was damaging, I was able to alchemize it, and now I'm more careful and of bringing the white tantric elements in and really empowering individuals as well. So that's what I recommend. If you are already in the tantric world and you haven't done a lot of work with white tantra, I recommend that you do. And yeah, let's continue. Hello, lovers. Please bear with me for a brief interruption with a vulnerable share and offer from my heart. So, when I first began my journey with spiritual intimacy and sacred sexuality, all I could afford were books and free podcasts. I was just out of college in my early 20s and honestly very, very broke. And I'm so grateful for all the complimentary, kind words and affordable wisdom that have gotten me where I am today. Price shouldn't deter you from healing. It shouldn't deter you from living the life you love or from reclaiming the most powerful energy in your body. It's my belief that time and commitment are also very powerful investments, especially when you're just dipping your toes in the water. You'll know when it's time to make the bigger cash investments in your journey. But let's begin together today with free love from my heart to yours. As you've already discovered, this podcast is free and it includes so much life-changing wisdom, but I'd also love to guide you to some free offers that are on my website, including a downloadable sexual shadow work workbook and a pleasure positive meditation. Both of these resources are amazing places to start in integrating the tantric principles of expansion and liberation into your life. And you can access these at www.talktantratome.com/free or find a direct link in the show notes. Now let's get back to the episode. I did that white tantric course and then I came back to LA and I started having events that were very white tantric focused. We did lots of things like meditations and breath work and tantric yoga, and also things like art therapy. Artistic expression is a big part of white tantra as well, and can also be a part of red tantra. And then I launched the Turned On by Life course. Actually, before that, I started teaching I did a one-on-one experience of a journey through the chakra system that I then used like I basically turned it into the Turned On by Life course, the one-on-one piece. So let's talk a little bit more about what white tantra is. We've been like kind of dancing around it and talking about it in different contexts, but I want to go deeper into like how could you start practicing white tantra? So white tantra is characterized by practices that aim to channel and transmute sexual and spiritual energy to attain higher levels of consciousness and self-realization. And unlike other forms of tantra, there's less of the sexual piece, right? It's more about emphasizing the control. It's about harnessing this energy and circulating it within yourself. You know, white tantra can include things like breathwork practices. It often includes meditation, energy circulation, retaining sexual energy, channeling that energy into other projects or other parts of your body. Sacred geometry is also a part of white tantra. You'll see within a lot of white tantric lineages, there's meditations on different mandalas or on different pieces of tantric art. Again, partnered practice isn't a really big part of white tantra, although it can be. The partnered practices within white tantra tend to be things like eye gazing, or circulating energy, holding space for others to circulate energy, things like that. White tantra is really rooted in this personal growth space, focused on, integrating the alignment of the mind, body, and spirit, finding wholeness within yourself. There are non-sexual rituals and meditations that are aimed at achieving the spiritual enlightenment. So some ways that you might find, around exploring white tantra would be meditation. So white tantra often involves meditation techniques that are aimed at, quieting the mind, cultivating inner peace, expanding awareness. This might include breath work or pranayama, or a mantra meditation, repeating mantras over and over again. And the different mantras can mean different things. You'll see things like yoga in white tantra. I am certified to teach, a type of tantric yoga. These postures are meant to help purify the body, to welcome in mindfulness, to cultivate a deeper connection between the mind, the body, and the spirit. Tantric yoga tends to focus on this gentle flowing motion and mindful breathing to promote the sense of balance within oneself. Kundalini yoga tends to be a bit more intense and rigorous in its expression, but it is, often associated with white tantra as well. There might be different rituals within white tantra. These rituals, are often meant to honor the divine within yourself and in the world around you. They could involve things like, again, chanting sacred mantras or lighting candles or performing a puja to different deities or spiritual symbols. Puja means offering, it means devotion, it's associated with the temple. There are pujas in red tantra that are more focused on honoring another in their body and more sexual, but within the white tantra world, the puja is often more associated with ourselves or a deity that we're wanting to call in, anchor in, etc. White tantra is really about self-realization, self-introspection. Another thing that we might talk about in white tantra is compassion and service. A lot of white tantric lineages have a focus on community service in a way, volunteer work, acts of kindness, things like that. Just being mindful in general is a big part of white tantra, cultivating gratitude, bridging the spiritual world with the physical world. White tantra can also include exploring some of the old sacred tantric texts, looking at studying the deities, studying some of the ancient stories of tantra, as well as the myths associated with them. When it comes to white tantra, it's important to recognize that even though it is a more dedicated way of exploring tantra in terms of the doingness, it's more linear, it's more practiced. I can't find the right word exactly. Monastic, there still is no one size fits all approach. And it's really essential to continue to cultivate your inner intuition, your inner guidance, and honor your unique path to spiritual growth and enlightenment. And if you're new to white tantra or seeking guidance on your spiritual journey, there is definitely tons of resources out there. And within that, I want to offer, this is actually going to be the topic that we're exploring in the Higher Love Club this month. So if you're unfamiliar, the Higher Love Club is my online community. It is a space to, discover inspiration and tools to awaken your senses, ignite your soul's purpose, and embrace a love that transcends the ordinary. And every month inside the Higher Love Club, we explore a new theme. And for the month of March, it is white tantra. And then in April, we're going to be going deep into red tantra. So we're going to start with let's get a foundation piece. Let's start working with some of these white tantric practices. We only have, a month, and it'll kind of be just a taste of white tantra. If you're wanting to go even deeper into white tantra, I recommend the Turned On by Life course. The Turn On My Life course as well. You actually, so Higher Love Club is monthly, it's a monthly membership. However, you can enroll for a whole year and you get a little discount if you enroll for a whole year. And you get the Turned On by Life course for free. So if you're I'm really feeling called to this white tantra world, I would recommend enrolling in Higher Love Club for a year. And then you get Turned On by Life course for free. And when you buy them separately, basically you're getting a buy one, get one, because Turned On by Life is about the same price as a whole year in the Higher Love Club. So I recommend joining that way. But again, yeah, every month we get a new theme. In March, it's white tantra. We're going to have a live tantra yoga class that we're going to be doing together. And then we also will have a live workshop this month on white tantra. Every month there's a live workshop that also includes some community coaching. This month I'm throwing in a bonus of the tantra yoga, which I'm really excited to bring to y'all as well. You also get a video lesson on the monthly theme and a workbook. Every month inside the Higher Love Club is kind of like a mini course. And the really cool thing is as soon as you join, you get access to all the past month's content. You get access to the Higher Love Vault, which means that as soon as you join, you get immediate access to so much other content, so many other mini courses, things like, talking about tantric perspective of money and money as a lover. There's a course on shadow work. There's a course on expanding your orgasmic potential. Lots of really juicy things. And this means if you're listening to this episode, and it's no longer March 2024, you can come back and still get the white tantra content by just going into the vault. So really great value. I'm really excited to bring this to the Higher Love Club. You can join. There will be a link in the show notes to join the Higher Love Club. You can also go to my website, talktantratome.com, and just click the Work With Me tab. Really hope to see you in there. One of my favorite parts of the Higher Love Club is the community. So another thing that you get is access to an online portal, and you can ask questions and share your wins and engage with the incredible community of like-minded, purpose-driven souls. I absolutely love it, and it's super affordable. It's my most affordable offering out there. One of the people that recently shared a testimonial with me about the Higher Love Club said it's the biggest bang for your buck in the Leola world. So there you go. I hope to see you in there. If not, or either way, have a sexy and spiritual day. And I'll catch you next week on Talk Tantra to Me. Ta-ta. Oops, just kidding. Still here. I have one last thing for y'all. I want to say that the internet is a really, really special place. It's why we're all here right now. And many of us, including me, wouldn't have discovered Tantra or sacred sexuality if it weren't for this nifty invention of the 20th century. And almost none of you would have found my work and my vision without it. I love the internet, and I deeply desire to expand beyond it, to experience more real life love, community, and connection. So I invite you to check out upcoming Tantra events at www.talktantratome.com/events, or click the link in the show notes. I can't wait to give you a big squeeze in real life. Okay, now that's it. Ta-ta for real. Ta-ta.